All right, it's 2:00 and we're going to go ahead and get started. So we'll call the meeting to order. And at this time, we're going to ask Ms. Chelsea if she would to call the roll.
Hello, everyone. I'm Chelsea Nabrid. I'm going to go ahead and call the roll. Please just let me know if you are here. Miss Amy Jacobs. Hello. Alexia Jones. I don't see Commissioner Brose.
I just heard from her. She's going to be calling in. So I'm assuming everyone who's virtual can hear us. Okay.
She's not online right now, though. Brose. Okay. All right, Commissioner Nunn. Commissioner Dozier. Is he online? No, okay. Miss Stone. Do you see that online? Online, okay.
I'm sorry, present. I'm here.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Miss Julie Spores. Not online, okay. I know Representative Katie Dempsey said that she'll be on later. So she's not here right now. Senator Kirkpatrick will not be in attendance today. Commissioner Bruce Thompson, is he online? Not yet, okay. Commissioner Michael Nail.
I'm present online.
Awesome, thank you so much for joining. I'm looking for Mr. Nathan Call. Richard Woods. Is he online?
Superintendent Woods.
Thank you for joining. Okay, I've seen Mr. Stanley Jones. Chairman Terry Bernard. Is he online? Mr. Terry Bernard. Okay. All right, Commissioner Tyrone Oliver. Is he online? Not yet, okay. All right, I have seen Commissioner Sharonda Reynolds. And then we are looking for Director Vita Johnson. Oh, hello. All right, awesome. Yes. She's online. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. All right, Commissioner, you have met the quorum, so you're good to go.
All right. Thank you all. Thank you everyone for being here, those in person and those online. We appreciate your attendance. I think we have a good meeting for you today that you'll be really get a good update on some of the good work going on across our state in this area. I want to take just a moment to welcome Commissioner Reynolds Cobb to this work. She is recently been appointed as the commissioner of DJJ and has been at DJJ for a while and is doing a tremendous job. And I'm fortunate and blessed to be able to work with her and looking forward to working closely with her to help children here in Georgia. So thank you for being with us today. So we have our quorum today, and our first item of business is to have our recovery presentation. And I believe that is going to be Ms. Jessica Smith, Outreach Coordinator with Respect Institute, to introduce.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jessica Smith with the Georgia Mental Health Consumer Network, where I'm one of the outreach coordinators for the Respect Institute of Georgia. It is a great pleasure to be here with you all this afternoon, along with our speaker, Mike Kiesling, who will share his story of hope, recovery, and independent living. Once Mike has shared his story, we will open up the floor if you have any questions or comments. Please help me welcome our speaker, Mike Kingsley. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, sir, we can.
All right, excellent. Well, hello, my name is Mike Kiesling, and the title of my story is, How Did I End Up Here? I was born in Anderson, Indiana on November 26th of 1967. My family moved to Georgia when I was like 2 or 3 because my dad had heart problems and he couldn't handle the harsh winters up there. Ironically, the first winter we were here, a freak little snowstorm happened. My uncle got his car stuck in the snow, and my dad had a heart attack and died trying to push him out. Now, this was my very first vivid memory in life. There are little flashes here and there of memories before that, but I remember every minute of that night. So now here I am, small town Georgia, where you are classed by how much money you have or who your daddy is. And since we were poor and no one had a chance to get to know my dad, I was put in a box and kept there basically for my whole life. Or my whole childhood anyway. I was an outsider, and I remember sitting there thinking one day, it's like, how did I end up here? My teenage years weren't much different. I never truly fit in. I was smart, but not smart enough for the brains, not athletic enough for the jocks, not rich enough for the preps. I developed a little nervous tic that kind of led to me being bullied and made fun of, which alienated me even more. At age 14, I discovered that my mama and daddy weren't actually my biological parents, that they had actually left me not long after I was born, which made me feel even more alienated. My mama also got sick with a chronic respiratory disease at this time, so I spent my nights and weekends helping take care of her at home and in hospitals. Around age 16, my search for inclusion led me to find that one group of people, the stoners and the party crowd, didn't care who my daddy was, how much money I had, how smart or athletic I was. With them, I was never bullied, and I didn't have to be a caretaker. They just wanted to hang out and party. And I found that the drugs and alcohol were a way to escape. I had found my tribe. My mama lost her battle with her illness on Christmas Day of my senior year. And as I sat there staring at a world that I knew I'd have to face alone, I asked myself again, how did I end up here? After graduation, I did some time in the Marine Corps, finding some inclusion there. I married my first wife and had a child. That marriage didn't last very long, and I lost everything in a pretty nasty divorce. I felt alone again and turned back to the drugs to escape. I then met and married my true love of my life. We had another child and started building a pretty decent life. I was still drinking and smoking, even though I was still in the military, now in the National Guard. I was not at my full potential, but not doing too bad. We had a nice house, nice vehicles, 2.5 kids and a Labrador, the American dream. And I remember sitting there one day smiling, saying, how did I end up here? My life really started downhill at age 30 when I was introduced to methamphetamines, and what a torrid love affair we had. I made the huge mistake of introducing my wife to it as well. Now, for years, we did it as good as you possibly can, just recreationally on weekends. We maintained our jobs, our family commitments. I coached baseball, etc. But that can only last so long. It slowly but surely unraveled, and over the next few years, our family was separated and devastated by that drug and by the chaos that comes with it. As I looked at the dumpster fire my life had become, I had to ask myself again, how did I end up here? My wife ended up getting into some trouble, and that was it for her. She was done. She got into drug court and was absolutely determined to change her life. For the next year, she avoided me like the plague. She knew that she had to, and I knew that she had to as well, because I wasn't done yet. But during that year, I was lost and I was alone as I had ever been. That slow circle around the toilet bowl finally turned into the big flush. And one night, as I sat in this cheap motel, I looked around at the people I was with. There was a guy taking the air conditioner apart. There's a girl plucking all of her eyebrows out in the mirror, a guy digging holes in his arms with tweezers, everyone talking about who is snitching, who is stealing, just chaos. And I realized that I didn't even like these people, but here I was, right up in the middle of them, just waiting for more dope. And that's when I had the epiphany that I no longer like myself. So I sat there again, just shaking my head, asking myself, how did I end up here? On September 8th of 2011, I had finally had enough. My wife asked me if I wanted to go to a meeting, and I said yes. I remember walking in unsure. What would a life without drugs look like? As screwed up as everything was, I knew what to expect. It made sense in some perverted way, that life. But I was open and optimistic because I had seen the difference it had made in her. She was her again. She was the girl that I married again. That first meeting was all about me. They said things like I was the most important person in the room, and I hadn't been the most important person in any room for years, even if I was in a room by myself. They said they would love me until I loved myself, and they all welcomed me with open arms. Was it possible that I had found a home, a place that I fit in that wasn't destructive? And as I sat there full of hope, I thought, how did I end up here? Since that day, I've built my life around recovery. I jumped in the middle of the boat. I did the meetings, I had a sponsor, I did service positions, I worked steps. And the more I did, the better life got. We had another child, one that has never seen me high. I was a good dad, a good husband, a reliable employee, all of the things that I was not in active addiction. But I didn't stop there. I started working in the recovery industry as a recovery coach. I'm the founder of a recovery-based motorcycle club called the Grateful Few that raises money to buy and distribute Narcan to first responders around the state who have run out because of the epidemic. I'm the owner and artist of a recovery-based tattoo shop that gives artists in recovery a safe place to work without being exposed to drugs or alcohol. I've had the governor shake my hand. I sit on staffing for accountability courts, and I'm taking programs into local school systems to help kids hopefully not go down the road that I went down. And so I had to ask myself, how did I end? And then it hit me. It was all of these things, from that very first memory into the last memory, all the good, all the bad, the magic and the tragic. The sum of all these experiences is how I ended up here. So my goal now is to continue this journey of recovery. I can't wait to see what happens next. Recovery has taken me to places I've never dreamed of and given me gifts I've never imagined. I want to leave a legacy of helping people and to be remembered as a good man. And if I achieve these goals, I will have a life well lived. So I challenge my peers to outdo me. If you are new, go after this with the same tenacity that you went after the high. And if you have some time, don't limit yourself. Keep growing and expanding your life and your recovery. To the health system, I challenge this. Don't qualify who gets help based on the haves and the have-nots. You never know who will get this or who will change other people's lives for the better. We all deserve a chance to one day smile and say, how did I end up here? Thank you for listening to my story.
It's an incredible story and great presentation too. So good job and congratulations and where you are in the life you're living in recovery. And thank you for what you're doing to give back to others. And thanks for being with us today. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Next on the agenda is our March 7th, 2023 minutes. I believe you received those by email. You also have a copy in front of you. Are there any additions or deletions to the minutes? If not, we'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Motion.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye. Any opposed? All right, minutes are approved. All right, next, we're going to go into some updates. Just to lay a little bit of groundwork here for this first one for some of our newer members. This is going to be a presentation by Renee Johnson at the Georgia State University Health and Policy Center. This is going to be about Interagency Directors Team, IDT. IDT, some of this is old hat for some of you who've been on the BHCC for a while, but the IDT is actually a product of this council. It was created by a vote of this council several years ago, and it is a interagency team of what I call the people who actually know what they're doing and who are actually out doing the work every day. I tell our staff at DBHDD, I get to stand up and act smart and act like I'm doing great things, but it's because of the work they're actually doing on the ground, and they're the true experts. So what was discovered several years ago, if we bring this group of people together and task them with some challenges and some problems, they can really come up with some solutions that maybe elected officials and people in my position are not able to because they're so close to the work. So we asked Renee to update us on where this team is. This BHCC also assigned them some specific work a meeting or so ago, and she's going to update us on that. And I think, Renee, if I'm not wrong, you all are actually going to be coming to us every time we meet with an update. So gives a little bit of an introduction. Renee does a tremendous job for our IDT team, supporting them from Georgia State. So at this time, we'll turn it over to her.
Thanks, Commissioner. Good. It's good to see some familiar faces. Welcome to those of you that I've never met before. I'll get my clicker. Let's see. Where are we going? There. Okay. We'll do it that way. Yeah. Okay. So thank you for the nice setup, Commissioner. Some of this information, again, in the beginning is going to be a recap for those of you that have been here, but wanted to provide a couple of quick updates. So one, I'm going to go over the IDT rebrand. So for those of you, we've been working collectively for over a year to rebrand the IDT, to bring visibility to it, to bring understanding, give you some highlights about what we've been doing across system of care. And then I'm just going to briefly give you a timeline on the match work. And then I'm going to turn it over to the match committee chair, Bobby Cleveland, to give you some more in-depth details on what is happening with match. But for those of you that have been here for a while, we've overgone a intensive over a year rebranding effort. We engaged a consulting company so that we could really bring visibility to the work of the IDT, understanding to the work of the Behavioral Health Coordinating Council. We had landed on a name last year. We were ready to do the big rollout, and then the insurance commissioner's office beat us to the punch. So our name was going to be Access Georgia, and they came out with Georgia Access. I was on vacation in Jamaica in December, and I was getting emails from everywhere like, oh my God, what happened? So we had to pivot, and we went back to the drawing board to rebrand. And where we landed is we landed on MindWorks Georgia. And we believe that MindWorks really represents who we are, even better than Access Georgia, where our work is about providing access to those that need services to behavioral health. But we wanted to lean into the fact that we are, as a group, the working group of this council that actually is doing the work. So that is represented and what you see in the works. And obviously Mind, we wanted to tie in the behavioral health piece of it. And the dot that you see in the middle, one of the things that came out intensively in the branding sessions that we did in focus groups is that our work is about connecting the dots across the behavioral health system. And so that dot there is representative of that's what we are there to do. There's a lot of moving parts and pieces, great work, and we want to be the connector of that work across our system. We didn't change our tagline. So if you saw that before, it's thriving outcomes start here. And that's what we want to accomplish for our children, young adults, and families. So that's the new name. That's the new tagline. And what you see there is just some of the branding materials that we started with. What you also have in your packets is you should have received the final update of our behavioral health mapping financial report that we had completed. It was initially branded with all of the old stuff. It has now been branded with all of the new work, and it is ready to go. So hopefully you guys will resonate with our new brand. We are working to put this on the roadshow, if you will. So you'll see meetings, you'll see brand materials that'll be coming out, press releases. And so we're going to be working really intensively to bring awareness to this work. So giving you some highlights on where we are, what we've been doing, what the work is that's been happening across the system. We are currently in our completion of our current 3-year strategic plan. We are wrapping up the activities. For those of you that may be familiar with the work so far, there are 11 active working groups that are completing work across the system, from school-based behavioral health to telehealth to workforce development, and a range of work groups across the system. We're wrapping up that work. We are moving to complete those things as we begin to roll into our next strategic planning session. We are, as I mentioned, wrapping up our branding, and now we are preparing to promote our MindWorks rebrand across the system and really bring awareness, because one of the things that would happen in the past is that we would say IDT, but people weren't really sure who that was and what we did. And so we believe that there's an opportunity that we're trying to seize with the focus on behavioral health, with the importance of our system, that we can really bring and enhance the work of this brilliant work of people, I believe, across organizations that exists. And we are also working on the dissemination of that map, that of the behavioral health financial mapping report. There was a lot of work that went into that. We mapped across the system where spending happens across behavioral health in terms of dollars spent, in terms of agencies spent. And so we are now working to meet with each of the agencies that were represented in leadership. So all of your agencies, as well as other stakeholders who have an interest in understanding our behavioral health system, we're meeting with leaders and we're meeting with agencies to share this report in a very intentional way, so that we can bring understanding and also the awareness that that report is a baseline report, and we are looking to continue that work over the course of the next system of care state plan and ongoing. In the next 3 to 6 months, as I mentioned, we're going to be strategic planning for our new 3-year strategic plan. And to Commissioner Tanner's point, there were some asks of the IDT at the last meeting in terms of some projects to look at care coordination and service gaps and hoteling, and all of those things we're going to be incorporating into our new strategic plan, because we see that work as ongoing work. So we are incorporating that. We are also incorporating the work that we will learn from Match. So IDT, or MindWorks, is working really closely with the state Match committee around addressing those needs. And we want to not duplicate efforts, but we want to parallel those efforts together. And so we're going to incorporate that work into our next strategic plan. And then later, over the next 6 to 12 months, we're going to be launching that plan. We're going to be reconfiguring our implementation work groups. Again, there's 11 work groups, but those work groups will be reconfigured based on our new objectives, based on what our new focus is in certain areas. And then we're going to be focused on implementing our short-term strategies. So timeframe wise, we are looking to kick off our strategic planning in the next couple of months. We are looking to bring the new draft plan to, I believe it's the November meeting that the council has, so for you guys to be able to review it and adopt it and have approval. So the plan would be effective starting in January of 2024. So that's the time frame in terms of laying that out in terms of strategic planning. And then another thing that I wanted to highlight is you will hear me over time give updates regarding different projects that MindWorks serves as the advisory board for. You may have heard in the last update, we serve as the advisory board for the Georgia Mental Health and Pediatrics Program. We're serving as an advisory board for the Mental Health Services Providers Grant. That's a partnership. And we also are serving now as the advisory board for the Infant and Toddler Court Program. And so this program was one that the COE applied as the lead agency, but under the auspices of having MindWorks be the advisory group. The key partners here, as you can see, are the Office of the Courts, DBHDD, DCAL, DFACS, GEARS, and the COE. And in that particular funding, there's $3 million across 5 years that is coming from HRSA, the Health Resources and Services Administration, to implement a statewide infrastructure for infant and toddler courts. And really the focus of that program is about keeping families together, about addressing the systemic needs that affects families and especially kids being removed from families and placed in foster care. So trying to keep families together and shorten the time that children have to be away from their families, and also addressing the behavioral health components of those families and of the children. 3 local sites will eventually be funded, and we are receiving national technical assistance from 0 to 3 to really stand this program up. We're in the planning year. We have a year for planning, and then we're going to roll out some requests for applications probably in August or September of this year to look for sites across the state, at least 1 rural and 1 urban site to begin the implementation and then to build out. And I just wanted to put this in here so that you could have a little bit more context on what the Safe Babies approach is. It's driven by a vision of prevention, where systems work together to strengthen the family and putting the need to protect and build safe and stable, nurturing early relationships at the center of child welfare. And so there's been a lot of momentum in our state, even around infant and early childhood mental health. And even in the current plan that we are wrapping up, that was the first system of care strategic plan that included the infant and early childhood space. And this, we believe, is also a testament to the work that has happened across MindWorks and our other partners in advancing the ICMH. And what you'll see here is that it takes a local community, a lot of collaboration, a lot of key activities to be able to make this program successful. And you can go more into that in detail, but I wanted to put that up here so you had kind of a visual. And then another visual I wanted to show was just the areas of focus for the ITCP program. Just again, the same as system of care. This program is built around the child, the family being at the center, and us building the supports that we give from a child and family centered point of view. It takes an interdisciplinary, collaborative, proactive teamwork. There's advanced oversight and collaboration that happens. So us looking at what is happening, how can we solve problems across the system, expedited and appropriate and effective services. So as we build relationships across the system, we can expedite care and services to where families need them and how they need them and when they need them. Again, trauma responsive support and care. So really working with our accountability courts, mental health courts, and those others to make sure that we are providing culturally and linguistically appropriate and competent services, as well as the trauma-informed support, because we know that for our families who intersect with child welfare, the behavioral health and the substance use piece is often there. And so we want to make sure that from addressing the system of care standpoint, that we are hitting all of those things, and then continuous quality improvement. So over time, you will hear me give updates about that program as well as the others. And then I wanted to also just bring to the council's attention a reminder for some, but maybe new information for others. A lot of the work that we talk about, the system of care happens, it's a tiered approach. So there's the state level approach, the local approach. And so the local interagency planning teams is Georgia's system of care at the local level. The purpose of the LIPTs, for short, are to improve and facilitate local coordination of services to youth with mental and behavioral health challenges. There are currently 109 active LIPTs, and that means that a chairperson is in place. Some notes about LIPTs is that they are both single and multi-county, and they are led by volunteers. And so because they are an unfunded mandate and led by volunteers, there are sometimes challenges due to chairperson retention, again, unfunded mandate, lack of some of the mandated agency partner participation, and then also the LIPTs and their functions, them being able to function at the optimal ability is the lack of them getting referrals from places where they can actually serve the children. So that is some of the activities that are currently happening around LIPTs. And the reason why I wanted to bring this up and make sure that there was some clarity is that as Bobby begins to talk about Match and we talk about some of the work that's happening there, LIPTs are a critical part of that. And so I wanted to make sure that there was some clarity around what LIPTs are and what they're currently doing. We are also working on a data collection pilot with the LIPTs to better understand the demographic data of the children that are being served, identifying some of those key services and resources, and monitoring processes and other information. So the data collection pilot has been going on since January. We plan to wrap it up in June. It's across 3 separate chairs representing 7 counties. And we believe that this data is going to be helpful in helping us to understand the landscape of services and resources and the needs, and also to support the work that is happening and will be happening around Match. And then my last update before I pass it over to Bobby is just that this is the timeline for Match. And so just want to give you a reminder of what we've done so far. We've had 3 strategic planning sessions. We have taken those strategic planning sessions and drafted some recommendations and drafted some strategies about how we feel best to move forward. And Bobby will talk about that, but we are really in the ongoing stage. So implementing, testing, and monitoring the recommendations from the committee. And I will let Bobby go more into that. But does anyone have any questions for me before I finish? Yes.
What's the court?
If you have a question, if you don't mind, press the red button on your black button, and I will turn you on.
You always turn me on, Kevin.
Too much information.
Yeah, TMI. What's the court piece for the Safe Babies? Is this like probate court and defects cases, or is it something broader than that? Or
It's broader than that. It is child welfare cases where the children are at risk or have been removed or in foster care. So the Safe Babies is an intervention that's working with families from the child welfare side, but also the behavioral health side to provide interventions to parents, but also to reunify families and get them the services that they need to shorten the time that children and families are away from each other.
Thank you. Yep. If mash your black button, if you don't care on the microphone, sure where that is. There you go. All right, go ahead.
He doesn't turn me on, but that's just another thing altogether. So this is a lot of work, a lot of extraordinary work. And I'm always, since I do very similar work, just your ability to fund and to take it to scale is just a real challenge, right? And I didn't realize that this was sort of an intervention as opposed to a prevention, right? With the courts and with, I guess, the ITCP, I love these acronyms. That's all sort of intervention, right? So children who have been identified with having mental health problems and challenges within the family. So my first question is, in taking it to scale, what sort of resources have you identified, number one? Number two, what aspect of this work really does sort of target prevention and to keep these children out of the system and making your work easier?
That's a great question. So one of the advantages that we have with this particular program is that we have a planning year. So oftentimes when we receive funding from the federal government, there's not the time to actually effectively plan other than they want us to begin to do and then produce outcomes. But with this particular program, we have a whole year to plan. And so we're in that year. And so to your point, there are a couple of things that are happening. We have intensive technical assistance that we're receiving from 0 to 3. And so this model is not new, but it is new to Georgia in its formality. There are a couple of jurisdictions in the state that have been doing some similar work. Judge Peggy Walker, who has been instrumental in doing some stuff in Douglas County. And so she's helping to consult on this so we can think about the prevention side because she's seen that in her work over the years. And so part of what we hope to do in the planning year is to establish the difference between the prevention and the intervention and how we can really work with what already exists between behavioral health, child welfare, and the court systems to shift some of that. So as I come to bring updates, I hope to be able to provide you with some more concrete answers, but to say that you're on the wavelength that we are on. And so we're looking at all of those things from prevention and intervention. And as we look to scale up, because our goal is, again, and what we have been granted to do is to establish 3 sites, but ultimately we would love to see those 3 sites be successful, so much so that we could scale them up and we can make recommendations, even from a legislative perspective, to see if there's a way to change and to get funding in our state to be able to support some of what we see those systems changes are to get to the prevention side of things.
Are there any other comments or questions from anyone here in person? All right, do we have anything online? No questions online. All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
With that, our next presenter is going to be Bobby, who is the chair of Match. And I think she'll probably tell you what that is. I'll just say that Match as it stands today was reconstituted as part of House Bill 1013. And I think most everyone's familiar with that. Great work of Speaker David Ralston. And we're looking forward to her update. So Bobby, before you start, I just want to thank you for being here, because it's the first time I've ever been in a meeting with your husband, Stan, that he was on time. And when I walked in the door and I saw him, I almost passed out, and then I realized why. So thank you very much.
There's a reason he was here on time. That is my job. But aside from that, I'm not used to using a microphone or a podium or slides. So can you hear me all right? But I can't stand behind that and talk. I don't know why. I just can't. Anyway, thank you.
And Bobby, before you start,
Yes, sir.
let me just mention to everyone that the main purpose of the microphone, just so you'll know, is the online presence we have. If you speak, they'll not be able to hear us unless you're in the mic. So thanks, Bobby.
So let me know if I'm talking too loud. I have been accused of that before, have I not? So anyway, thank you for allowing me to be here today. I know some of you, I don't know most of you. My job today is to provide you a brief overview of the work done to date on Match and a little bit of a preview on what comes next. So as some of you, most of you may know, I am a volunteer chair of a group of people who are listed up there. And it's a good thing that I work for those group of people, because they're the professionals. They're the ones who do this work every day. So when I was asked to chair this group, I asked, well, why me? I've never worked in state government. I don't know the ins and outs of daily work. I've worked around state government on these issues of child and adolescent behavioral health, but why me? So I was told the reason I was being asked, because I do bring an outside perspective, a fresh perspective, and probably as important is that anyone in state government is covered up on a daily basis with the crisis du jour. They don't have time to step back and ask, why are we doing this and how are we doing this and how things might be different. So that's why I'm here today as a volunteer. Now, this group of people, when they first met, and my applause to them, the first question they asked me, or the first concern they expressed, Bobby, we've been around this table before with these same people, asking these same questions and having the same conversation. What's going to be different this time? So I shared with them what was shared with me. This is a new opportunity. Step back, look at how things operate now, think how we can leverage and deploy current resources, maybe in different ways, to achieve the purposes of Match. So no next slide, because I didn't give you a slide on this one, and maybe it's just as well. What are the purposes of Match per House Bill 1019? And if I had a slide, you'd be reading it, and I don't want you to read it. I'm going to give you the layman's version of what I believe it basically says. Excuse me to the lawyers in this room. But essentially, it is create a state match team representing 9 agencies, most of whom are on here. Accept referrals from throughout Georgia of children and youth with complex treatment needs that have not been met at the local level. And then 4 things, very important: coordinate with each other, collaborate with each other, explore resources, and provide solutions. To me, that is my understanding of House Bill 1013 and what it's asking Match to do. So solutions for 2 purposes, 2 very important purposes. The most immediate one is solve the problem for the child that has been referred to you. This is a child, complex needs, they haven't been met. We need to deal with this. That's job 1. Job 2 is to answer a question Commissioner asked me yesterday. what went wrong? And what are the commonalities among what's going wrong with all the other children and youth that we are seeing? That is also the core of what Match is about doing. So I think we can go to the next slide. The planning committee came together and worked on doing what I think is always the first step. And what are the parameters that must be in place if you're going to design a new undertaking? Design it to achieve not just the letter of the 1013 mandate, but what I believe is the spirit of 1013. And the first thing they did was to create a vision, not so much a vision statement, but what they wanted to answer is, what are we trying to achieve? And that's A. B, how are we going to know? How are we going to measure it? So what they are trying to achieve is that vision stated up there on your screen. And for those of you, I guess, online, you can read that on screen, but I'll read it very quickly. Georgia's children and youth with complex behavioral health challenges and their families will receive the services and supports when, where, how they need them, with attention to cultural and linguistic needs. That is their vision. How will we know if Match achieves that vision is depicted in that slide, that graph. Not my graph, but I used it because I think it is helpful. That line at the beginning, that is the number of children who are referred to the state for resolution of their problems. The red line going up shows when Match fails. Match will fail when every kid that ever has a complex need winds up at the desk of Heather Stanley at DBHDD. When Match will succeed is when there will be fewer children that line up at the state because Match has been able to intervene and serve those children at an earlier time. That is the measure of success. Okay, next slide. So if Match is indeed going to succeed, this is what the committee has told us are the essential components of success. If these components are not in place, Match will not succeed. Wrong slide. Here we go. Number one, access to a pool of flexible funds. Now, I've been told not to use the word flexible, so apologies. I did not know what other kind of word to use. We're talking about so many funds are tied up so tightly with regulations. This, you can use it for this kid, for that purpose at this time, until and I know there's work being done on blending and braiding. That's our long game, good, but we need a short game. And a short game is a pool of funds for Match to use to step up and help these kids. Number two, essential, authority to make temporary, underline temporary, exceptions to those state policies and regulations that are creating barriers, excuse me. Why temporary is so important. The committee expressed their concern. We do not want temporary solutions to be the default way. These one-off, crisis-oriented situations over and over again. We need to get out of that loop. We need to be learning from these exceptions. Again, what went wrong, why it went wrong, and what can we do differently? And that is why the third data point is so important. Match must document these policy exceptions that are being made and understand how they are creating barriers to care for these kids. Lessons learned. We cannot harvest lessons learned unless we document what's happening. So that's point number 3. Now, point number 4 is pretty self-evident. We obviously have to invest in Match infrastructure, staff, and technology to make that happen. The next data point is a promise more than anything else. Match does not intend to roll out statewide any kind of changes until they're tested in a pilot project in a rural area and an urban area. Next to last bullet point, it's important to engage all voices. And finally, what we're not about is creating another bureaucracy. We don't need another silo. The next side, I'm not really going to spend any time on because you already know this. You've seen this slide a million times. These are the challenges facing Georgia's behavioral health system. Match is not going to solve these. Please know that. This match is not about solving these. What match is about is giving you important information that will enable you, I think, to better solve these issues. Okay, those are all my slides, but you actually have a report in front of you. You don't need to read it now. And just very briefly, because the next step is implementation. So what does this look like? Devil's always in the details, isn't it? So the implementation is intended to be in two phases. First and most immediate, now as we speak indeed, rolling out match at the state level. What needs to be in place at the state level for match to succeed? And there are three components at the state level. Two of which you already know. The match team, per 1013, which is that group of individuals that will come together to design the rollout of match, evaluate its impact and effectiveness, and receive the data on what are the barriers to they're creating, what are the policies that are creating barriers so we know what to do about them. That's the match team as articulated in 1013. Just as important and critical to match, which is not in 1013, but match won't work without it, is something called the match clinical team at the state level. These are clinicians from each of the agencies that will come together and really provide the real-time responsiveness to these cases that are coming to them. They, again, going back to the essentials, will be determined how real-time we can solve this child's problem. That is going to be their job. And in doing so, again, documenting what's happening in order to provide that information back to the match committee. The match committee is being staffed by the COE to help do that analysis. The match clinical team will be staffed in-house at DBHDD by the director, the match director. And then the third component, of course, is you, because the ultimate authority to hear about any changes that we recommend, it's yours to do. And so there are three components at the state level. Phase two, there's not much to say about phase two. We're in the planning stage, but and this is really important, I believe, if match is to achieve that vision, remember the vision is kids getting the services when, where, and how they need them. If we're going to achieve that vision, which I believe is the spirit of 1013, how does match intercept and serve kids before they get to the state level? That is the big question we have to address next. And addressing that, we know we're going to build on the existing resources in the behavioral health system, but we're going to step back and we're going to reimagine and test how those resources might be differently deployed in ways that might better enable serving kids sooner at the state level. So that's where we are. If you have any questions, let me know.
Just keep in mind, if you have a question, if you would just mash the black button. If you're here in person, it'll let me know which microphone is in front of you. All right, go ahead. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Bobby.
I know you have a hard question. You always do.
No, I don't. I just think all this work is extraordinary. I guess I'm a bit confused about the structure of it, right?
Mhm.
So do you perceive the match program as a centralized referral system with case management, working with individual providers throughout the state, or are the clinicians within the match going to be responsible for managing the care of these children? And all of these children are in the DFAC system, or these are children within or without the DFAC system?
That's a two-part question.
Okay, I'm
I'll
sorry.
try to attempt to. So
Okay.
many of them are in the DFAC system, but DBHDD is responsible, I believe. And what 1013 is about is providing behavioral health services for kids with complex needs, many of whom are there. Some of them are in DJJ, and some of them are living with their mothers and fathers as we speak. So it is certainly about kids in DFACs, many in hotels, we know that, but it's not just about the DFACs kids. Now, I'm not sure I understand the first part of your question. The state clinical team, this is just getting rolled out. I'm not a clinician. They will be trying to determine what are the barriers to get the services needed so that the providers in the community can provide those services. And I don't know if that's an answer to your question.
So I was trying to figure out, how do these children come to the attention of the match program? Do providers, who refers them into this system?
That is part of what we're working on. We're working on two things. If I were to ask 10 people, please define for me complex unmet behavioral health need, I would get 10 different definitions. So right now, as we speak, Heather Stanley is working on what are the criteria, at least for now, to use to actually define what that means. And then secondly, what are the referral sources, at least to start, will match begin to respond to? And it may be management. You don't want to be overwhelmed. It may be we're going to just deal with DFACS and DJJ kids to begin with. I don't know. That's a question that the clinical team will be working on. It's the right question. It's not one that's fully understood right now.
I do think it's the right question, but I think you will be quickly overwhelmed,
Correct.
however you define it, in terms of the numbers of children who are really struggling with complex problems. And so I was just curious how the resources, they would be available to those of us who are doing the work, who are working with these children, looking for additional resources and coordination of their care.
Yes, and that is why the second part of this planning process is so important. Not everything needs, nor should it go to the state level, because that's going to be the default. I have a complex kid, I'm sending it to the state. No, 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 no. We need a pipeline. We're calling it, we're calling it a pathway to care for match. How can we create a system using whether the LIPTs or the CSPs or 988 or other core providers? How can we build a system that can initially receive referrals for match to try to begin to address them before they get highlighted up to the state? Yes, that's not a complete answer. That's not a complete answer. It is the challenge.
Okay, thanks.
I told you, you asked hard questions.
I did. You answered it beautifully.
And let me just add the beauty of all of this is no one's going to come before us today or in this process with all the answers. That's why we're here. And that's why you're on this group. So we look forward to you. And I'm sure Bobby's open to this, working with her and bringing your expertise to this conversation, because one of the challenges we face as departments, and I have conversations every day, well, every week with Commissioner of DHS or DCH about a one-off child that finds himself in a situation in an emergency room or in a hotel. And there's a whole lot of finger pointing about who's responsible. So the idea here is this is a group of agencies that's coming together that puts the child number one and then worries about the rest later. But at the same time, want to track all of those similar cases so we can bundle them and figure out how's this happening? Why are these kids ending up in this situation? We got to put the fire out, but we also need to solve what's causing the fire to start with. And hopefully with the coordination between the local groups, match, this entity and others, we'll be able to get there. Bobby, you've done a good work so far with your group, and I know Dante's been a big support of that. So we appreciate where you are. And again, all the members of this group here, I know you all have a specific level of expertise, but I know Bobby is, for my conversations with her, she's very open to thoughts, ideas, and suggestions. So thank you for your partnership.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you. Next item. I'm excited about this program. Carol runs the adult mental health section of our department, DBHTD, and she's doing a tremendous job in that area. But she has a gentleman she'll talk a little bit more about. And this is an exciting opportunity that I think will become a national leader in the country. And, you know, Georgia doesn't do a good job sometimes of telling the success stories because we focus a lot on the negative. But our peer program in Georgia is nationally recognized, and this is taking it to a new level. So with that, Carol, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Commissioner, and good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure.
Speak in that microphone if you don't care.
Bobby, I'm with you. I don't like these things either. And so it's a pleasure to be here with you today. It is my first time, so I'm glad to be here and get to know you. So to start, I wanted to tell you a little bit about just our peer workforce. That's a really vital component of our services. They're embedded throughout, from everything from our outpatient programs, such as our psychosocial rehab programs, our intensive programs like the ACT teams, and in our crisis continuum through our mobile crisis within our CSUs. Today, we're going to focus a little bit on forensic peer mentors, and that's an individual that has lived experience in both the behavioral health and the criminal justice system. So within our office, we have various programs that employ forensic peer mentors. We have them through our assisted outpatient treatment programs, and we have them in our new Jail InReach pilot projects that are being championed by Commissioner Tanner that we're working with. We also have forensic peer mentors within our prisons, daily reporting centers, and other facilities. I want to introduce Laji Ruffin, who is currently working with us at DBHDD in our office, and he is our forensic peer mentor. I'm going to say superstar. He is our forensic peer mentor training coordinator, and he's going to be working with our forensic peer mentor workforce and providing some training and additional support throughout the state. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Laji so he can tell you a little bit about his journey working as a peer and now transitioning over to DBHDD. Thank you.
How y'all doing? As I say, my name is Laji Ruffin, and I'm the Forensic Peer Mentor Training Liaison. Want to tell a little bit about my story, my beginning. I was a youth that didn't really understand what mental health and the impact of mental health was having in my substance use disorder. Didn't really know the name of it, didn't really understand it. I was just angry, and within that, it landed me as a young teenager within the criminal justice system. I was convicted to life in the Georgia prison system. These pictures that you see, it was my daughter prior to me going in, my daughter Tiana, and that's me within the prison system, as well as this is my family. So not only did I was incarcerated, but my family was incarcerated as well as with me. And they didn't really understand the impact of mental health. Because like I said, we didn't really know the name of it. We had a lot of stigmatized language, crazy, went by the medication, but the names about our medication to identify us. But it wasn't till I got into the Department of Corrections that it helped me understand what was going on with me. And they had the services within the Department of Corrections to really help me really identify what I was going through and get the really help that I really needed, working with the counselors, working on my anger issues, and even working how I presented to my family, right? And really let my family understand what was going on with me. My transition. After doing 22 years within the prison system, I took a trade called Braille, where I produced books for the blind. This is a skill that I had that allowed me to transition very well. I went into the Governor's Mansion program where I worked at the Governor's Mansion when Governor Deal was currently in office, as well as I was housed at Atlanta Transitional Center. Mrs. Deal was the first person that gave me a hug after 22 years. I didn't really understand. I'm sorry. I love Ms. Deal very much. She passed last year. But she's the one that gave me a hug, and Governor Deal is the one that really took charge within our transition there at the Governor's Mansion. He helped me learn how to tie a tie. I just watching him, just how he talked, why he understand and move, and how he just ran Georgia, and he's also was a business owner. I transitioned in 2016, and I created my own Braille company where I produce books for the blind. Within that, Governor Deal just gave me the support. A lot of people ask me, what Governor Deal did with you? He just gave me the support that I could transition properly within the community. But I wanted to really help the individuals that in the prison system really understand mental health and the traumatics of effects of imprisonment, and really just understand that. So this is what really led me to being a forensic peer mentor. I became a certified peer specialist in mental health, as well as addicted disease due to my lived experience with mental health and substance use disorder. I became a national certified peer specialist where I took a test where I became national, and I became a certified psychiatric rehabilitation practitioner. And on loans with these gave me the tools to be able to serve, to go back within the prison system. The one thing they did, they gave me a chance because I still was on parole at the particular time, but they allowed me to work back in the Department of Corrections at Metro Reentry Facility. And this in 2018, I was there, and right when you see me with a mask, we worked through COVID. This was the beautiful thing about Forensic Peer Mentor, because we were still working within the pandemic. And this right here, when you see the picture of Governor Deal there at Metro Reentry, and me right there speaking to the governor, went back to the governor's mansion to speak to men, to show the men that recovery is real, right? To let them know that, hey, you can recover, you can be whoever you can be if you just put your mind to it. My educational accomplishments, as I say, being a forensic peer mentor is not only just our lived experience. We have to skill ourselves up, and being a certified peer specialist in mental health and addictive disease give us the necessary tools where we can work with the population, that we're not only just living through our lived experience, but we come in with a set of skills to be able to serve them. So within that, after I told y'all about my certified peer specialist certifications, I graduated from Morehouse School of Medicine. I attend Mercer University now, go Bears. I got my CIT training. There it is, that I'm with law enforcement. I'm with Athens Police Department, individuals that at times I used to run from. But now I'm in the office with them, and I took the CIT training to be able to help individuals that's going through crisis and going through breakdowns within that, and even gave the perspective of officers of our lived experience, and just how when they get on them calls when individuals are going through crisis, or how they be able to deal with them. So that particular class was very impactful, because they never had a forensic peer mentor right there in there training them, and most of it just law enforcement within that. Also, being a forensic peer mentor, it gives us the skills to work to the communities and work with other agencies as well. So I worked with the Department of Justice, the United States Attorney Office of Northern District. Here it is that I'm with three U.S. attorneys from 2006 to John Horn to now Ryan Buchanan, that's the city U.S. attorney. We work through the Credible Messenger program. And see, this is the thing, us as forensic peer mentors, this is the power of that we can go into the community and to be able to not only work with adults, but work with children as well, working in Department of Juvenile Justice with the Credible Messenger program. And this is really just to showcase who I am. Now, why did I tell my story? Why did I really tell y'all story? To really just to show you that if people get involved with people coming out the criminal justice system, because what my story tells, you have government that stood with me, Department of Corrections, Department of Community Supervision, the pardons and parole. After doing 23 years, the pardon and parole changed my sentence, commuted me, terminated my life sentence to restore my voting rights back. So I voted for the first time. I'm a homeowner, I'm married. I have 3 beautiful grandchildren. I am very involved. So this right here shows you, if the community gets involved, you produce individuals like me. And that's what the beautifulest thing about these departments are getting in the mix, we call it. Governor Deal always said, we could just get in the mix and help these young men and women that come out. This is why I tell my story that it does work. Power of partnerships, as I just talked about it. The Forensic Peer Mentor Project was slated in 2015, and you have DBHDD, Department of Corrections, Department of Community Supervision, Georgia Mental Health Consumer Network, and IHOPE. These are the organizations that partnership to partner with to bring the forensic peer mentors to life and give them the support that they need while they're doing the work. Because just think about the military, when people get dropped in a hot zone, they have support. And this is what forensic peer mentors that we do when we go into these jails and these prisons and into the communities with these individuals, when the families are not really understanding what's going on. We as forensic peer mentors are right there to help support them as well. So that was the power of partnership. The forensic peer mentors, we in 22 prisons, 15 are field. We call this the great expansion, right? The great expansion, because when I came in 2018, we was only operating out of 3 prisons, but now we're operating out of 27 Department of Correction sites. We got 15 field. We also are in transitional centers. We got all positions filled as well. And we into integrated treatment facilities, where I love them facilities because they treat co-occurring individuals with mental health challenges as well as substance use disorder. We also are in 8-day reporting centers with Department of Community Supervision. All of them positions are filled. We're in 10 accountability courts. We have six positions in field, and we're in our assistant outpatient treatments, and we have three positions is filled within that. Now, the transition planning, what do forensic peer mentors do, right? You know, we provide wide ranges of services, helping with employment, with housing, with treatment, with transportation, with individuals getting licensed, anything that the returning citizen needs to help them transition, we're going to be right there supporting them all the way, even down to even when we have really found out that families are becoming an issue, because, you know, when mom is taking care of the children, she was in a 5-bedroom house, but now she's in a 1-bedroom apartment due to the economic impact. The mom might be feeling some kind of way when the individual returning back. So we have a program called a Family Unification Empowerment Education Program. We nickname it FREE, that we help them bridge the gap between that, where we start on while the returning citizens in prison with their family or their support person, and we help support them as well. This is our outcome, and this is my favorite part, because, you know, as they say, I could do a lot of talking, but numbers do not lie. So the thing about when you look at all the people that we serve since 2022, 23 going into 2023, is that if you look at the number, that's 4,874 people and counting that we are serving now. I'm definitely proud ever since that this program was produced in 2015. But this is another thing that I want y'all to look at as well. We have, since 2015, individuals that have been served by a forensic peer mentor, 0 has returned back to prison. 0 has returned back to prison. That is a phenomenal number when we have the recidivism rate that individuals coming back from 3 years and less. We have a 0 rate of individuals that are coming out of prison, that if they're with a forensic peer mentor, we have none that came back. And this is just a breakdown of just who we just served, you know, who we have housed. This is the individuals that came out of prison, 100% housed, enrolled in mental health services, as well as benefits. We really pride ourselves of really helping the returning citizens get back into the community. The forensic peer mentors, they work with a small, we call it peerless. We work with a small, but called caseload from 20 people is our max that we work with. We become a bridge between the community and the returning citizens who coming back. And we provide linkage services as well. And then we help reduce recidivism as well as psychiatric readmissions, you know, them going into the hospital. We really try to work on that, you know, recovery tools with them. So if they do go into crisis, their work they plan, if it be they wellness, they RAP plan, or anything, we help them with that. We also help them understand parole and probation to help them complete that. And then we go into our success stories. We got Melvin Green here, that this is during the pandemic. I helped him get a job. I helped get his ID, because ID is one of the barriers that our returning citizens have. And just like he said, he had a problem, he had an anger problem and he was going to give up on life. But, I was able to support him into getting his dog training as well as his wellness certification. And then when I returned, when I drove him home and he had all these tools, his mother accepted him because she seen a change in him, right? And that was the most beautifulest thing. And then we have Mr. Carson Tubbs here that he got his CDL license, his permit. That was very powerful that I was there to just help him support, not do it for him, but be there to support him as a forensic peer mentor. And then this peer right here, within the pandemic, he did 20 years. He did 20 years in the prison system. I was there for him where he opened up his first banking account. We worked on, while we was in prison, we worked on banking and his tools, and he opened up his banking account. And he was very proud, and he's definitely doing good now. And at the end, if we all work together, I'm just showing you a snapshot. If all of us work together, these are the outcomes that we're going to definitely produce. Any question and answers?
Just add a couple of comments to that. Department of Corrections has been a great partner for us, and the commissioner there is working with us because one of the barriers, like Lodgy mentioned, if you haven't had a state ID in 16 years, a new photo in 16 years, then you have to get out of jail, out of prison, go to the DMV and get your picture made. So they're working to actually train some prison guards as examiners for the purpose of taking the picture, because we're trying to cut down on any barrier to someone who gets out of the prison system from being successful. Lodgy's team works closely with them on their IDs, on their birth certificates, Social Security cards. And one of the things I think is so powerful about this is if you talk to, I know Jeff Breedlove likes to famously say recovery occurs in the community, because we can make sure people are taking their medication, that they're on track in jail. When they get out, they have to have that tie to the community, and Lodgy's group's really working with them, going to their first mental health appointments, et cetera. So it's a great program that's having good success. We just need to expand it. We need more forensic peers. We need to be in more prisons and continue the success story. So also Maxwell, who works for the Department of Behavioral Health, is working closely with the program. He's our housing coordinator, our voucher coordinator, because one of the things, and you saw from the statistics, having a safe place to lay down at night is important to successfully long-term recovery. And our folks are all working in coordination to make sure that happens. So thank you for what you're doing. Any other questions? We got one online. Is it Michael? Michael Neal. Michael, I believe you got a comment online.
Yeah, I do. Thank you, Commissioner Tanner. I greatly appreciate it. Elijah, good to see you. Always good to hear from you. You're right. You are a superstar. But one thing I wanted to let you know, Commissioner, is that we're in 15-day reporting centers, but we've got 35-day reporting centers. So we are committed to continuing to expand into all of our day reporting centers. But what I wanted to share with you also, a group of my colleagues were invited to meet with the newly appointed National Institute of Corrections director. And it was interesting because all of us, without even planning this, all of us had forensic peer mentoring as one of the #1 ways they can help in the community corrections environment, to provide the research, to help get the word out. Georgia was held up as one that is doing it right and on the right track. But this is also on the national stage. And quite frankly, I think it's probably one of our most underutilized assets, and would probably bring our greatest return on investment. So just wanted to share those comments. Really pleased with the way it's happening. So thank you, sir.
And I'll just say Commissioner Nail's another great partner at Department of Community Supervision. Michael and I first started working together many years ago. We was at Department of Corrections, and I was on the board. And he's a true asset and a true champion in this work. So Michael, thank you for all you're doing and what your department's doing.
Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Am I the only one? Why is it I'm the only one speaking today? But um, congratulations to you. What a powerful story. And as you were talking, I was reflecting on the other speaker, who I get what he did, the recovery guest. And I guess, I always think about as a pediatrician, what does it take to maximize the potential of a child, right? And I always say there are three things. First is validation, knowing that you're worth something. And that begins when you're born and continues throughout your life. The second has to do with creating a vision for yourself. And the third is opportunity. And you just really summarize that with your story and with his story, right? Because you had someone to validate you even after 20 years of prison. Mrs. Deal, and I'm pretty sure there were other people who wrapped their arms around you and told you that you were worth something. And then you had the ability to serve, just powerful. And then the opportunity to do this work and take it higher. Do you impart those sort of themes to the people that you mentor? And when you speak to their families and other children who are younger, individuals who are coming through the juvenile system, do you point those relevant aspects of your recovery to them so that they can build on that? Because when you talk about, well, we do this, and this, but really what the theme that sort of radiates through all of it are those three things: validation, vision, and opportunity. Have you ever done it in that perspective, or have you even recognized that, because you say you didn't even have the words to identify the mental health disorders that you were going through, but have you realized that's really at the core of your success and what you're doing?
Yes, I have. That's definitely a good question. But yes, I have. One of the things that I love is our live experience. And when we talk to children, we look at them and we was that child. When that child don't know what's going on with them, at times they just need somebody to just sit down with them and say, hey, I just understand. It ain't so much of, big words, but just sitting in there with them and just saying, it's okay. It's okay that you're scared. It's okay that you hurt. It's okay. And I'm here to sit with you until we can get some understanding. But most important part is the child get to understand it, because I can embark a lot of stuff, but it's until the child get the understanding. And that's what's the beautiful thing about the forensic peer mentors, because we have the lived experience through the behavioral health systems. And we was once that child, or we was once in that disadvantaged neighborhood, or we seen a lot of things occurred that at times we just sit there. And that's the one thing I love about the peers that we work with, is about creating an independence for them. It ain't what I think what they should. It's empowering them to help them and sit there with them in their power. And I have seen that hundreds of times through my story, as well as the individual I work with and the forensic peer mentors who work in those communities that's in the shadow. I call them shadow warriors, that they don't get the praise, but they sit there and work and they help to build and understand and build the family. Because when the family understands, then the family can help more and get the resources necessary.
We got three more questions, Logie, but before I go to them, tell them who called me when you had applied for your job and Carol wanted to hire you, but we couldn't because of our policy. She couldn't. So when I was driving home one day, my phone rung, and who was it?
Governor Deal.
That's right. And he said, Kevin, if DBHCD can't give somebody a second chance, I don't know who can. So our general counsel changed our policy, and Logie's working for us. All right. So our commissioner of DJJ.
So thank you so much for sharing your story. I think you should always tell your story. As I'm sitting here listening, as I was listening to you, I'm thinking of all of the youth in our facilities that I just think can benefit, because you bring a story of hope and you tell a story of nurturing that I just think is so important. My question, young girls, because we also have in the pictures, I saw males, I didn't see females. Are there females that's a part of the program as well?
Yes, yes, we have. And I'm happy to say that we have a forensic peer mentor in all women prisons as well as transitional center. We heard the call that women was not getting the same supportive service and reentry services as men. So we was very intentional to making sure that women will replace that every women facility, and the new one that's coming up, McCray. We have somebody slated soon as Lee Arundel closes, because it's slated to close. We have one that's going to go down there and offer support.
So I cannot wait to talk to you once this is over.
He's not for hire, though. All right. No. All right, I'm not sure who these folks are, but I'm gonna call your number 25.
So Laji, I'm really proud. I'm sitting over here just really, really proud. Our organization is RISE, and we are partnering with Georgia Works, and we are people living in recovery. And there was a gentleman that came in who had served 18 years in prison. And after hanging out with us for a little while, he wanted to become a peer mentor. And we were immediately jumped on him and gave him your phone number. But the thing about it was, and I can honestly say that I knew that he was in good hands as soon as we gave him your number. And he came back the following week, lit up, happy, and excited about his future. So thank you again for the work that you do.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Number 26.
Yeah, just to echo everything that's been said, your story is amazing. And Bobby earlier talked about how when things go wrong, it's important to kind of look at what the circumstances were that led to that event going poorly or a situation going poorly. And I think the same thing is important to do when things go well. And obviously your story is the perfect example of where the folks came to you. I'd love to hear if you had a peer mentor as you went through your own experience, even if that wasn't what it was called at the time, if it wasn't a formal program, but if that had some impact on you. And then secondly, I think because this is such a great example of how, when it goes well, the commissioner earlier said, I believe this is the right thing to do because it's the right thing to do for people, but set that aside for a second. This is a return on investment that probably is astronomical, right? And so this is something that needs scaling up. What do you see as the things that are constraining the scale? Is it a pipeline of people who are ready to be peers? Is it funding? I would love to just hear your thoughts on what would be the things that need to be in place in order to continue to grow this to the degree that it could have as much impact as possible?
Well, I guess the elephant room, of course, is money. Money as well, because, I feel that the peers need to have a livable wage to do this work. Because, I feel if, you pay people properly, you get a better service. Because, we serve from our heart, but, Georgia Power is not gonna, with our heart, say, please keep my lights on. But that's definitely the elephant in the room there. But also, I just think of, when I hear about all y'all departments, it's just the outreach. A lot of, since I've been within DBHDD, I've been hearing a lot of programs, and I hear a lot of programs here, but I know that a lot of the community doesn't hear about it. So, I'm making sure that the forensic peer mentors know about these particular services. So when they're in these hard to reach in these rural counties and these rural areas, that they can give the information. Because, when we got a call from Toombs County Jail that's way in Vidalia, and when I looked at the map, it was really nothing around, trying to see what forensic peer mentor was around or something. And like the people at Pineland was telling us, it was like, we feel like, and this is what they were saying, we feel like we're alone down here. And when I told them about the forensic peer mentor project, they was excited. They was excited. We need y'all down here. So, I'm really being intentional of just making sure that the forensic peer mentors have the necessary information, because information is key, where families and peoples can really properly access that. Because we can quick to say and quick to blame government and quick to blame all these systems, but at the end of the day, the people don't really know how to access these systems. And if we can, and that's what the beautiful thing about forensic peer mentor, when we go to that first mental health appointment with them, they already nervous already, but we walking in there with them. So guess what? They go in a second time, they go in a third time to get the help that they really need. They support group. We sit in the support groups with them, you know. So them are the two things that I think that, you know, it could be addressed amongst others, but, you know, definitely within that, I think that our workforce will grow tremendously.
I'll just add too that Brenda and Carol's working on our training program that Georgia wrote, the training program around these peers. And there's just not enough training opportunities to get enough people trained. So Brenda and Carol and Logie and others are working on that, not just for the forensic peers, but for our recovery peers and others. So that's a challenge. And obviously a lot of things go back to the almighty dollar, being able to afford to pay for them. We've got one more question here, and then we've got a question from Chair Lady Dempsey. So we'll catch Stan.
Probably shouldn't say this, but I think we got to go down to the third floor and walk across the street to OPB. I mean, this is what the peer programs have done here over 10 or 15 years, a little bit longer actually. We're really at the forefront. Georgia's at the forefront of these issues, and these destigmatize mental health more than anything else. And they prove the case for investment. Just like you were saying, and you know, it's just thank you and you know, these meetings have opened as the board meetings have for 2 or 3 years now with a presentation by people who have succeeded in recovery in the mental health system, substance abuse system, in the prison system. I don't think there's any more powerful story than these about how government can work well. And I want to do everything I can. I'm an outsider, so I'm not employed by the state, so sometimes I can say some things more easily. But this is just so powerful. I mean, this is what works. And you know, good listening, good ID that comes from being a peer, you know, and good medicine. They're probably the most important things in the mental health system. I'm not denigrating counseling whatsoever, and that's necessary, and particularly with more serious illnesses. But you know, medicine and peer support seems to me to have more effect on changing our culture and helping our kids, helping our farmers committing suicide, all these things that have led to the commission that Kevin so ably led. And we are at the apex of interest in mental health and substance abuse. And the stories y'all have been telling to me are the really key, because they enlist all of us in feeling hopeful. I don't know anything more powerful than that.
Thank you for that. And I think one of the things we've got to do a good job of and a better job is telling these positive stories, because again, we only focus on the negative. And then somebody who's really led in this area and helped us from a financial perspective as a state get these success stories is Chair Lady Dempsey. And I know she's joining us today as a member of this group, and I believe she's online with a question. So Chair Lady Dempsey.
I am. Thank you, Commissioner. What a powerful message. Logie, I want you to know, I remember you when you were there with the deals. I remember seeing you, and I remember how life-changing that staff there that was working in our mansion really impacted Governor and Mrs. Deal so much. I know if she was here, she'd be so very proud of you. And I'm so grateful that the governor stepped in and created this pathway to change some things. I just want to tell you, I want to make sure that you know that your lived experience, your knowledge, and your heart to serve are so vital to our moving forward. Peers at all levels, all ages, from the tiniest of children through those who've been challenged in the prison system to those who are just newly walking through the challenges of mental health and addiction recovery, are so vital to what we need. So I want to encourage you to continue to extend your voice. It is probably one of the greatest keys I've heard to help people understand the why, and not necessarily the people in this room, because I think most everybody here does. But we need to explain the why peers are important, the opportunities that exist, and the importance of expanding the appropriations process. So thank you for being here. I know it may be running the meeting late. I'm going to jump off and just say thank you so much.
Thank you.
Chair Lady Dempsey, we'll be looking forward to bringing Lodgy and his story in front of your committee too, because I think this is a good story for the entire appropriations subcommittee to be able to hear of some good successes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I think that's all of our questions. One last thing I will mention, you mentioned earlier about learning from our successes. One of the things we're also doing is, and I think Carol hit on this, we're starting 4 jail in-reach pilot programs. One will be in Hall County, where Nathan Dill's son, Jason Dill, is one of the Superior Court judges who leads Accountability Court. And then Judge Goslin leads the Mental Health Court. We'll have a jail in-reach program there with a full-time jail in-reach coordinator and a full-time forensic peer. We're also going to have a pilot in Gwinnett, and we're also going to have 2 others in the state. So we're excited about that. We feel like we can prove the investment is worthwhile with a high ROI, and then be able to go across the street to OPB and others and be able to demonstrate the need to invest further in this service. So Lodgy, you've got a powerful story, and we appreciate using it for good things. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Next up is another great project that we have underway. Sarepta, I'm gonna see how well you do following Lodgy. You know, I don't know who set this agenda up, but you know, that's a hard act to follow. But she's doing great work for us on the CCBHC. Some of you may not know what that is, so she'll explain that and give you an update. So Sarepta.
Thank you, Commissioner Tanner, and thank you all for having me. I know we're running towards the end of your meeting, but I just want to give you a little slice of what I'm excited about, because I was at the department for the past 10 years, and I remember when the program that Lodgy is speaking about came up, and that really fuels us to continue the work. And this next piece of work, I think, is also a big and important piece that's going to expand access. And I'm here with my partner from the Department of Community Health, Michael Smith. He's their Director of Behavioral Health, to demonstrate to you that this is an interagency partnership work that has to take place in different ways of the state. I know that I've met some of you, and some of you have worked with me, as well as about half the group over here. So it's not me standing alone talking about CCBHC today. I want to give you just the very briefest overview of CCBHC and then show you a video that I think will really paint the picture for you. So just to set the level, CCBHCs are a new provider type in Medicaid, and they are really aimed at comprehensive individualized care with accountability and with sustainability. CCBHCs are specialty clinics that are going to be providing whole person care. So they're going to assess and treat both behavioral health, so mental health, substance use disorders, but also provide primary care monitoring and screening for individuals so that when any person comes in, their needs, whatever they may be, are able to be coordinated within the same place and then with outside partners as well. In return for increasing access and for all of that care coordination, CCBHCs receive an enhanced Medicaid rate based on the cost of providing services. So this makes the model sustainable once they're implemented. There's outcome measures that are collected annually to continuously improve the service. And what we're really focused on is that there's not just a service there that's available for individuals and families, but that it is about the performance that that creates. So that, again, a person across their lifespan are able to go to their local community provider and receive whatever it might be that they need at that time, however complicated or simple it could be. CCBHCs are our nonprofit quasi-governmental agencies known as CSBs here in Georgia. They have to provide 9 specific types of services, and they can partner with others to make sure that those needs are met as well. The emphasis is really on 24/7 access to care for crisis, but also to prevent it, evidence-based practices, and the real underlining point is care coordination. These are the 9 types of services. They're going to be very familiar to you because these are the services that exist currently in the community, with the intentional add of that outpatient primary care screening and monitoring and an extended focus on providing care for those who are veterans or active service in the military. Again, any individual can be served by their CCBHC if they approach or have outreach to them, regardless of ability to pay, ensuring that those who are on Medicaid, but also those who are uninsured or low income have access to the same high quality services. Here you can see that this is a national and approach. 500 plus CCBHCs. Most of those are currently funded through implementation and planning grants from SAMHSA, from the federal government. There are states like Kansas and Texas that have implemented state plans to cover CCBHC services, and Georgia is working on that as well. We also recently received a planning grant, so we are working to hopefully join the federal demonstration next year, as 10 more states will be added to the initial 10 that were a part of that program. Here's a list of where our current 11 potential CCBHCs are, with the expectation that this will grow. There is a funding opportunity out right now that some of our CSBs are applying to receive from SAMHSA. The first two, Advantage and Pineland, were the originals that received the first SAMHSA expansion grants. River Edge and New Horizons, we used some COVID relief funds to help their implementation efforts. You see the 5 others that received SAMHSA grants in the last round. And then we were fortunate to have state appropriations to begin 2 CCBHCs with Aspire and Highland Rivers. So there's a blend of CCBHC candidates where they are and also how they're supported currently. I keep calling them candidates because they're not certified yet. There's a process. This is a multi-year process. The grants typically are 2 to 4 years, and that is a focus on implementation, the infrastructure that's required, health records that can collect quality data that's required, and making sure that the policies and expectations are up. So in the phase 1, those are going to be providers who have received some type of funding for those efforts and have done a community needs assessment to be aware of where their focus should be as they work to expand access and care. Phase 2 takes place about a year to 2 years into their process, and this is when they have been able to attest that they will be able to meet this rigorous certification criteria. The certification piece happens here in Georgia by DBHCD, and it is the gateway to the sustainable funding through the prospective payment rate, which is based on their actual and anticipated cost to deliver services. And so all in all, it's about a 2 to 4 year process to go from interest to becoming a certified community behavioral health center. Just want to give you a snapshot of our state of Georgia and the coverage that we currently are anticipating, again, with the opportunity to grow further. Those yellow areas are the ones who have just started their process. They're in the planning. Those blue areas are already 1 to 2 years in, and they've attested to their ability to be certified. And then we anticipate that some of those will convert over and be certified within the next few months. And then if all works, this will be hopefully popping up so that we can see a brief video to show. Oh no. Okay. Because what I think this will do is connect some dots and really tell you the story better than I can in these fast-paced overview slides.
So I have been diagnosed paranoid schizophrenic since I was a child, early diagnosis. And my father passed away and I moved to Colorado. My mother passes away 3 years later and then moved back to Georgia. And everything started weighing on me a little bit. I wouldn't be here sitting in this chair if it wasn't for Advantage, because my mental health was going downhill extremely from depression. I haven't been depressed since I've been here.
Typically, the client who comes to Advantage is the underinsured or the uninsured.
CCBHC stands for Certified Community Behavioral Health Clinic, and it is a comprehensive approach to behavioral health care.
As we've gone down this journey of CCBHC, we are able to give our clients services that a local nonprofit behavioral health agency is not able to do.
In the CCBHC model, there are 9 specific types of treatment that are expected. And what that means compared to now is that there's going to be an expansion of services.
So having a CCBHC allows us to provide services in a way that looks at the whole human being and what their needs are and tries to meet those needs, for that client on that day.
We've had individuals who come to Advantage and they have never seen a primary care doctor for years. And they come in with different health conditions and there's nowhere to send them because they have no insurance. So this way, those individuals, we can walk them down the hall and they can see a primary care provider.
We have a nurse practitioner who would see clients for lower level healthcare needs. And so it will decrease them from running back and forth to the ER.
Everything's here. You go see the doctor, you go see your therapist, you go and fill your scripts right there.
There's not a light switch that you flip on and a provider is suddenly a CCBHC. You can think of this certification process as 3 steps. The first is really readiness and investment, the beginning of the process. About a year into that, there is an attestation that takes place that sort of kicks off stage 2 of the process. And then step 3 would be certification by DBHDD.
I think for us, what's going to be the big difference is the way we're funded. That's huge because right now we get reimbursed with Medicaid, which the rates have not been adjusted for a couple of decades.
CCBHCs not only create new positions, they also reduce turnover.
With the CCBHC model, we will be able to actually cover our costs, which will benefit our clients because we can expand our services. We can offer competitive rates to our clinicians, and we can have that level of services that the client needs. For example, care coordinators are not covered under the current model of funding.
The care coordinators are a huge part of the client success because I have 3 care coordinators and we're calling clients on a daily basis to check in on them. We see that you missed your appointment. Can we get you rescheduled?
We currently have 11 CCBHC candidates. If you think of it in stages of readiness, we have 7 that are just starting out in the beginning, and we have 4 that are in stage 2, and we are working towards certification. Our hope in NAT accreditation is that anyone who walks through the door, if they have a behavioral health diagnosis alone or a behavioral health diagnosis with a developmental disability, will be served confidently and with care.
We still have a long way to go with addressing the stigma to behavioral health, but I think this has opened a lot of people's eyes. They're ready to talk about and ready to listen.
CCBHC is a step towards value-based care. And what that means is that we're measuring many quality measures and outcomes that help continuously improve and drive service delivery.
Used to be, we could just say, we don't know, this is how many clients we serve, but now we can say, this is how many clients are better because of the services that we are providing.
And what we want is for people to have treatment that works for them and sets them on a path of recovery for their whole life. So we're not just focused on one particular need that they might present with. We're looking at the whole person and trying to meet their needs across their lifespan.
I'm all for it. I think there should be one. I think there should be one in every city. The nuts and bolts is that there has to be more places like this. For a crisis center, one spot, a pharmacy in one spot, a doctor in one spot, a psychiatrist in one spot, a therapist in one spot. You can't get any better.
That concludes the presentation. There's a website there, ccbhcgeorgia.org, where we continue to provide updates about the process of implementation. Are there any
questions or comments for Sarepta? Number 24.
You help me out. It's a wonderful concept. It's not new. It's integrated behavioral health into primary care. It's what it is. I love it. I think it's fabulous, and it's really an indictment against us that it's taken so long for us to get there, right? So I have a couple of questions. One is for the cost-based reimbursement. Does that kick in right during the implementation phase, or do you have to be certified in order to get the cost-based reimbursement?
You have to be certified.
Then the second question, for the medical care, I know you have a nurse practitioner who can care for most of the conditions, but for those with medically complex problems, how do you manage them? Because the problem is not necessarily even when they're in the clinic, is when they have to go into the hospital or when they need special services like x-rays or special procedures. How do you plan on addressing those?
So a CCBHC is sort of akin to a federally qualified health center, but on the behavioral health side. So really through care coordination and care partnerships, and there are required care partnerships with inpatient, acute, specialty care that have to be in place for a CCBHC to be certified. So that would be my short answer, is that the CCBHC would have to coordinate care with any other providers involved with that person's life according to their will and desire for that to be the case.
I'm just going to tell you, this is going to be a challenge for you, because, clearly you can have people who commit to serving X number of patients without insurance, but just the whole, scope of services that are going to be required is going to be really complicated. So I just want you to understand that ahead of time, because you may have to do more networking and more commitment from people who care for families without insurance. And that includes hospitals who will actually provide those services for those who can't pay.
Thank you. Thank you for the feedback.
Number 26.
Looking at the map, so I'd like to hear a little bit more about just the plan. Is the plan to become a statewide, like full coverage for the entire state? Is that the intent?
The intent is for it to be statewide according with a state plan amendment, and that would mean that a person should have access to CCBHC services within about 50 miles of their home.
Okay, yeah, because I looked at the map and I'm thinking some of these are covering quite a geographic area, and with transportation being a difficulty for many of these folks, many of them, if they have Medicaid, they can use Medicaid transport, but if they're uninsured, that may not always be an option for them.
That's true. And part of the model in that sustainable funding and cost, transportation can be included when it's not already covered by another resource.
Okay.
Stan.
So at least conceptually, I'd like to understand kind of and I think you two answered this, what's different is the case management and the primary health care from our current model for CSB. And then what's the marginal cost of elevating our CSBs to the comprehensive status? I mean, I know you can't be precise about that yet, but I just would like to understand the magnitude changes here that we're.
Well, each CCBHC will have its own unique rate because each site has its own costs associated with whatever the services may be needed. It will cost more as a system, but there are indications that there would be savings in other areas of our state. From the national report of the early adopters, the ones that were in the demonstration, there are decreases in costs in the judicial system, in the hospital system, certainly in ERs. The crisis system. So I can't give you specifics on the numbers, but that's the anticipation, is that we have to invest here. We talk a lot about investing in behavioral health in the crisis system and, how to fix someone said fires earlier, but this also has to be a part of the overall care of an individual and preventing some of those fires.
Can you give, how much were the federal grants for the?
For the implementation and startup, the federal grants are either, the new ones are $1 million for 4 years. So they're essentially $2 million a year for your planning and your infrastructure and your startup. And then a site would be certified and move to that prospective payment system.
All right. I don't think we have any other questions or none online. So thank you for that.
Thank you for having me.
Hopefully you saw today, there's a whole lot of work going on in Georgia, moving the conversation forward in a positive way. So with that, I do want to thank some of our folks here. I want to thank Camille from our house media services here at the Capitol for doing a great job. I want Chelsea and Cherie for their hard work, and Theo, who's with us virtually. It's been helping behind the scenes to make all this possible. With that, unless there's anything else, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, aye. All opposed. Motion carries. We're adjourned. Thank you very much.